Can't hear you at all, Stephen. Can't hear you speaking. Yeah.
Can you hear me now? I've been broadcasting for 17 minutes without sound.
Oh.
Well, I had nobody. Normally, I've got two of you with me, and I know before we went live.
Studio and it wouldn't let me in, so I rebooted my machine, which is usually the standard fix, and then spent minutes and minutes watching Windows updates go through. Yeah, I did send you a message, but you probably haven't seen it because you're concentrating on being on here.
Yeah, I just saw it. Right. So the thing is, as far as Royston Radio is concerned, this episode won't work because 22 minutes of silence is not a good thing. So I'm gonna have to tell Fons there's no episode this week. Yeah, that's the first consequence.
I'm a bit rough, actually. I think I've got a cold. Are you all right?
Yeah, I went out for my 3-mile walk this morning, and coping is probably the best word. Coping, physically fit and coping, but yes, yeah. Learning that having diabetes is a lifestyle change, and it's basically you take your numbers every day, and you've got to stay within a certain range. And I totally blew it last week. And the thing is, if your blood sugar levels go high, they take forever to come back down. So I'm battling with the numbers at the moment, but enjoying the food and the exercise, because I now go out for a walk at 8 o'clock every morning and go walking for 3 miles. Okay, so I don't know whether anybody's going to see us today because the first 23 minutes were silent. Yeah, the silent broadcast, episode 390. Yeah. Do you think Peter's had enough?
I don't know. don't know whether it's the pressure to do things from his mentor or what. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm glad he's busy. I'm glad his business is busy. But if he's wavering on his commitment, then fair enough. I can accept that after nearly 8 years. And we shall have to do a reappraisal of how we go forward. Because it's better with 3.
Oh yeah,
there's no doubt about that.
I can remember back to the days when there was just the 2 of us when we first got started, and it's much easier with 3. It's even better with 4. But you know,
that's true.
Stephen fell by the wayside, and sure.
Well, Stephen's busy in Stoke and on LinkedIn, so he's fully occupied. But Peter's not even listening today. He hasn't even messaged in to say he lends his support. So,
all right.
Yeah. Okay, right. I missed her then, John, because nobody heard a word I was saying. Right. Have you heard what Prime Minister Sunak said yesterday about motor vehicles?
Well, we're going to delay it till 2035, but it was inevitable, wasn't it? But Land Rover and Ford are both very disappointed because of the investments they've made to date.
When I heard the news yesterday that the ban on making new petrol and diesel cars had been moved to 2035, yeah. I thought, how the heck are the manufacturers going to? Well, it's blown them out of the water because they plan years ahead, and they were already planning for 2030, and now they're told that. And we've made, as a country, we've invested hundreds of millions in factories that will produce the batteries.
Yep.
So we're totally committed.
Well,
to
the Society of Manufacturers has been campaigning for it to be put back by 5 years now. So it is their own industry that's been pressurising. Yeah. Round here, see, Birmingham is the centre for hydrogen research, and most of our buses have been converted to hydrogen in the West Midlands. So there's a big push here to go to hydrogen, not electric battery based.
Well, but basically they're looking for something with 0 emissions, right? Now I thought that this was weird. Yeah, the announcement was weird. And whilst it was true, it wasn't the whole truth. I'm going to read you something.
All right.
Okay. Electric cars quarter to go ahead despite changes. Motor industry sources say they've been informed that the government plans to force manufacturers to meet minimum targets for selling electric cars, which will come into effect from next year. In other words, that is despite the Prime Minister's announcement on Wednesday that the introduction of a ban on the sale of new cars wholly powered by petrol would push back from 2030 to 2035. The 0 emissions mandate is due to come into force from January 1st, 2024. Car makers will be obliged to ensure that 22% of all cars they sell have 0 tailpipe emissions. That quota will rise steadily, reaching 80% by 2030. And this is the kicker. Failure to meet those targets could result in heavy fines. Reacting to the news that the mandate would remain in force, despite what Prime Minister Sunak said, one manufacturer said that they'll be forced to sell more EVs, but the relaxation of the 2030 deadline would make it harder to do so because consumers just won't want to buy. It now makes sense. One hand is saying we're going to push out to 2035. The other hand is saying, no, we're not. And the other hand is the law. I mean, motor manufacturers are going to be fined. They've got to be selling 80% of what they sell has got to be electronic cars by 2030. So who do you believe? This is crazy. This is fantasy politics. Yeah. What he said what he said yesterday has no validity or no power, and it's simply, it's not true. Well, it is true insofar as we push the public data out, but the date which agreed with the motor manufacturers hasn't changed. Weird.
Well, the most noticeable thing of that was the Lidl logos on the electric supply unit in the photo.
Yeah, I mean, a bit of promotion. So that was
every little store around here that has a reasonable car park has 2 electric boxes in the corner.
Yeah.
And they've deliberately placed them as far away from the store entrance as possible, so as people don't park in them unless they want electricity.
Yeah. Indeed. So there you go. I mean, you don't know who to believe. I mean, the other thing I went back to was pollution. I talked about it. Basically, the Prime Minister was saying that we can relax our targets in relation to cars, in relation to boilers and other things, and we're not going to tax meat. Now, I couldn't understand what taxing meat had to do with anything, whether, you know, he gave 8 things that he was going to stop, including taxing meat, but nobody had heard of taxing meat in the first place. I think he's slowly losing the plot because a couple of things he talked about just don't add up. Right, but from an emissions point of view, the government is relaxing what's going on, which means that Labour will pick up and say, no, we're not. But the thing is, and this has been my point for years now, we may be the 5th, 6th largest economy in the world, but we only account for 1% of carbon emissions. So even if we clean house and by 2050 we are 0, it won't make, and I love this northern saying, it won't make an ha'porth of difference, because the 99% aren't doing the same as us. As the Prime Minister said yesterday, we're leading France and Germany. Whatever we do doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things. It's what happens in China and India, n'est-ce pas?
Yeah, the world's biggest polluters.
Yeah, they are. They've got a situation where their industry is growing. They are industrializing. We've already done that in the 1800s and since. Okay, and my third point, which I didn't get to talk about because my microphone wasn't on, was the bromance between Keir Starmer and President Macron. Because Keir Starmer said he wants closer ties with Europe, which means closer ties with France, and he and President Macron get on together like a house on fire. King Charles and Camilla joined in yesterday. There's a big entente cordiale going on over 3 days between France and England, and our government just don't want to know. Weird, isn't it? And the other thing is there's a climate conference going on in the States, and nobody from the government is there apart from the Mayor of London. They just seem to have given up. Anyway, back to the bromance. Do you think it's a good idea, John, to be closer to France?
Well, there is only 22 miles separating us, isn't there?
That's true.
I haven't really thought of it, you know. Brexit was a big mistake, you know.
We agree. Yeah, total mistake, which we're regretting now. The majority of the population do regret. So Keir Starmer's ideas of getting closer back to Europe without actually joining the EU do make sense. Because we should. Yeah, sorry.
Carry on.
No, we should have trade agreements in place.
Keir Starmer's move the vote to 16 is a total turn-off for most of the people I know. They think their children, okay, most of their children have grown up, but they think their children at 16 didn't have the nous to vote. And I sometimes wonder if my children in their 30s have the nous to vote, because most of them say, can't be asked, to put it bluntly.
Yeah. I don't know. I think we are our teenagers are becoming more worldly wise. I mean, the internet's the prime mover in that. They are capable of being informed what's going on in the world. I think they can get married at 16, can't they?
With parental permission here in Scotland, you can, though, without
Yeah.
parental permission.
Yeah. So you've got to assume that if they're getting married at 16, then somebody thinks they've got some common sense somewhere.
Yeah.
I think the vote on that would be split. That half the country would think 16-year-olds are it's going to be put to the test, isn't it? It's going
If
to be,
Labour win, it is, yeah.
yeah. Okay.
Much as I'm not a Labour supporter, I'm not particularly a Conservative supporter, as you're well aware. I do think cyclic governments say things are due for a change, even if we don't like it next year.
Yeah, 13 years is long enough for anybody. And we've not just had one government. I mean, Boris brought a new government in. And then Liz Truss brought another new government in. And Rishi Sunak has brought another new government in. And they're all different, of course. And they have no knowledge or no responsibility for anything that happened prior to their government, which is pants. It's another way of saying it's totally not true. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing that screen because we don't need that anymore. Okay. Now then, Burnley are back. Burnley got a draw.
Yay, a point at last.
Burnley got their first point over the weekend, and the relief on everybody's faces and the comments that people were making. We're on our way now, not to being the top of the league, but to actually surviving. Because if you don't get any points at all, then you've no chance. Scoring goals, and we should have won. There were many people saying we should have won because that goal was a goal. But we'll take the point because it gets us off, and we're playing Man United this weekend. Man United, Man United just can't do anything right at the moment.
Lost last night, didn't they?
Yeah. And Kane scored one of the goals.
Yeah.
The ex-Tottenham player. He scored 6 goals in 6. No, has he 6 in 6 games?
I haven't paid that much attention.
He's doing rather well.
Now he can get on and do whatever he wants.
Yeah, he's doing rather well. Yeah. So, Burnley have got a point. Celebrate that fact. I wonder who Royston's local football team are, or nearest a large club are. They're down, not in Cambridgeshire. They're the next county over. Yeah. Okay.
Watford?
Possibly. Yeah. Elton John's club, as we know it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just like Norwich belongs to.
Well, it used to Delia Smith, didn't it?
Correct. So we're always Norwich is Delia Smith. Watford is Elton John.
Yeah, although Elton John doesn't have anything to do with it now, and Delia Smith's just agreed to reduce her ownership percentage. So,
okay. All right.
So I'm wondering. Actually, Royston's pretty much halfway between Cambridge and Luton, and then you've got Stevenage as well. And in fact, looking at it, I'd say Stevenage was their nearest football club.
Okay. All right.
They're still in the football game, aren't they, Stevenage?
Yeah.
Aren't they in the I keep wanting to say the 4th division. Aren't they in League 2?
I don't know. We're going back a bit when there were 4 divisions. Because Burnley were in Division 1 then. Definitely. And now we're in the Premiership. We've got a point. Okay. Now we've got a situation where I've been thrown by the fact that Peter isn't here, that my microphone wasn't working for the first 22 minutes. So shall we take an early break and reconvene hopefully next Thursday?
Okay, I was just about to say that I've done Stevenage a disservice. They're
Why?
actually in League One, not League Two.
Right. The real reason is that I've got this coming up later today, and I've done the videos for Wirecast. I've got some videos to do for OBS. I've got to record them. Then I've got to upload them to my OneStream studio, and then I've got to get the script together, and then I've actually got to go live at 4 o'clock. So I'd appreciate having extra time.
Okay. Well, if you would like to call it a day, let's call it a day. Shall we call it Thursday?
I think anyone is watching.